My name is Ernest Durston. I live in Victorville, California, in the Mojave Desert. Not a long ways from the Gulf Coast, but the BP, we're on further. Well, this is short chopped and restarted. Has been putting the screws to the American people, and price of oil probably will go up and their stock will go up, as they say they're salvaging some part of the oil when they're losing all of it. They could be salvaging all of it because of a intentional misdesigning of this cap that they did. The first cap was misdesigned also intentionally. That was just it's called stall. The object of it is to get these other wells online so they can bring up the money for BP's. They could care less about the people who are being environmentally injured because of the oil that's in the water that they're losing. And the government people are all running around blaming everybody else when it's a maintenance problem that BP never addressed, because it's like most companies, they ignore the maintenance when it's production. We saw miners who were killed in the mines in the east for the same reason, and they blame everything else. Everybody wants to blame everybody when nobody wants to do what's necessary for the human life to sustain itself. In this video that will follow, as I will explain to what the problem and why BP says that they're going to be in this region for a long time hereafter, more ways than one. Welcome to BP's world. They said they're going to be in the Gulf Coast a long time forever. Well, they might be, but it's going to be an interesting how the Department of Justice treats BP and their executives. They have been putting the wool over the U.S. Department of Justice and over the U.S. government employees for a profit to these people, probably no less. Nobody does anything when they avoid what they're supposed to be doing, paying attention to the law and violating it. Put it on the thing. BP, in their first cap, which somebody's already said didn't work, it's like taking a water hose and sticking it in the ground. When that much pressure coming out of the ground, which is pure ice, at that temperature, shreds of steel that rip out the rubber seal that they supposedly put at the bottom of that cap, which, first of all, the flange that it sits on in my machine shop working days at Central High School, Peoria, Illinois, I learned that skills that my father already knew, and it's ingrained into me, that there's no way that that seal that they put on there shows any kind of attachment to that metal flange. Any machine shop in the United States could understand this. Any person with any mechanical background understanding of metal, plastics, and rubber, that you need a nylon seal of some type above the rubber to set down on top of that steel flange in some way to attach that cap from the bottom side up, which it could be either a clip device, more easily set up out from the outside by cranking device screws to attach the cap back onto that, which the cap that they already have, they'll have to make another one so they don't interrupt the flow of what little oil they are catching, to seal that cap. The purpose of the oil going past the rubber cap seal is very intimate. The fact is that somebody approached the U.S. government about not one well drilling alternate after the unfortunate accident that could have been prevented by maintenance, that they got one well put down in the ground, then they got two, and someone even suggested a third one. So BP goes past the programs of environmental impact reports of adding more wells or whatever procedures. They get an instant 2 wells being dumped into the ground to type the words out that this is what is needed, when it's really in fact is mechanical engineers need to have been approached, as pictures of that seal that they put on their cap does not have any way of permanently attaching to that metal flange. There is a round all over the United States people can find this flange. The set this thing sets down on, it needs to be found a way that the bottom goes down on the top. At the top appears nylon, rubber on the sides, and where it comes in that the clamps go on the bottom, clip up like that, that pressure that's coming out of the well is humongous. And there is nothing it shows in that picture. It's showing the oil blowing out. That was the whole purpose of the oil blowing out, is to hide the imperfections, knowing that this thing was not going to work from the beginning, that they did anyway. Amateur machinist out there, BP, this is the outer ring that you'll be working with right here. This is what will have to be made. This is the ring that's already there now with the riser with the bolt holes, with the riser in the center. You already have the dimensions in any machine shop of the riser bell housing pipe that comes down. Okay, this is what it looks like on a different angle here. That's your bolt tank. But the red part outside is the area that you will be aiming at with a bronze ring. Inside this ring here that you will be making here will be up against the outer edge, on the outer edge over here, cut into it as a relief up inside the housing, even though this will be longer on the side length here, much higher, about a foot, maybe 2 feet higher, even higher for strength. This can all be made out of band pipe. This piece here, the riser part here, will have a pipe that goes down, a machine pipe over the top of it, and the red part here will be on the outside right here where the brass will sit. Inside that second, where the brass will be here, that will be smashing down on the edge of this here already existing bell housing that's in the there's two of them side by side, one on top of another. Barely make out this diagram here, this being the riser here, and this being the upper flange and the lower flange and the apparatus underneath and the bolts around here. The edge of this flange that's here, that's existing, is where the copper, brass, or bronze ring that will be built inside this ring here, grooved in. Getting that ring there bought somewhere as dimensioned to fit inside of a ring that will go over the top of this existing thing here, so that when this is smashed, the brass comes down and smashes on here. When this is compressed down here through this, there'll be an outer ring on the outside of this bell made with another piece of metal, round pipe, steel, and they'll have to be sliced through all the way around with fingers sticking through, that they'll be protruding outside, so when the bell goes down over the top of this flange here, that misses them. And then along comes the little mechanical frogmen on their mini subs and pushes the flanges in. As they push them in, from the bottom up, they'll have screws that come up against the bottom to tighten up. They'll have to have some kind of a hydraulic ratchets down below to crank each one of them up as you go around like this here, or crank over here, one sub over here, crank another sub here to push these bolts up into the bottom of the bottom flange here. At the same time as the brass will be coming down on top of this. On the outside of the brass there'll be a nylon, Teflon, another ring in front of it that the brass is smashing into it also, as it smashes down right in front of each one of the bolts going around. That'll be a plastic ring. They'll be shoved up against the bolts as they come down, as the oil that is turning to ice that is slicing the rubber that they have put on the outside of this thing, which isn't worth a damn, will be hitting this the nylon first, and the nylon will compress down onto the steel, and then the brass behind it, bronze or whatever, the soft metal, will be pressing onto the curvature of the flange on top here, that will cause this thing to compress the seal down here, and the pressure will be coming from the bottom up, pushing this housing down here. Right now I don't know what the heck BP has designed for some kind of phony thing, but there's no way to compress the outer ring into the inner ring without using a ring like this from the outer ring, which will have this ring on the inside like this, sitting there facing on the edge of the out of this part of this outer ring here to press against, and the bolts will be down inside the ring, which they are probably now, but